This video is brought to you by ProBoxingSupplies.com, where you can get 25% off now, and PowerPerformanceProducts.com, where you can get $10 off your purchase of Body Storm and Body Effects.
This is just kind of a package they kind of put together, but it's going to be pretty nice, pretty professional. So, okay, cool. The second question for you is, I saw something recently where you said that Chael Sonnen's build-up to the Anderson fight, you said that a lot of what Sonnen came out with, he crossed the line, he was racist, and you felt that he embarrassed America. But that kind of a build-up that he had with Anderson, would you prefer that kind of a build-up when you're coming up to a fight, or do you like this kind of a build-up that's very kind of quiet? You know, because Dan Henderson doesn't sort of trash at all. You really don't hear anything off him until you kind of get him in the cage with him. When you say Dan Henderson on top trash at all, I have to totally disagree with you on that. You know, the guy definitely made quite a few statements about my style and my personality that was unnecessary, uncalled for, and kind of came out of nowhere. So I disagree with you on that part. And whether fighter talks or not, it doesn't really matter. You know, I give my all in every training session, and I go out there with the intentions to win in the most devastating fashion, despite how respectful or disrespectful the fighter was. But, you know, when the fighter just talk trash and insult me, I use it, and it motivates me to not want to lose the guy even more. Okay, thanks. And one question for Dana, please. Just following on from that Nike deal, is it exciting to you at all that Jon's been picked up by Nike now? Do you feel like it's a watershed moment for the sport or anything, or is it just another sponsor?
And this is the conference operator. Dana White's line has disconnected.
Okay. Okay, that's everything then. Okay, thanks, guys.
And we'll go next to Reed Forgrave with FoxSports.com.
Hey, a question for Jon. You talked about possible Machida fight as basically high risk, low reward. And I'm wondering, with you coming in as such a heavy favorite for this fight with a Nike deal, you know, your stature is growing a lot right now. What's the risk reward for you in this fight?
With Dan Henderson, it's high risk and high reward, definitely. Dan Henderson is somebody who has a pride belt, and he has the Strikeforce belt, and you know, I feel like I'm fighting the pride champion, the current pride champion, the current Strikeforce champion in some ways. You know, he left both organizations on top, if I'm correct. So, you know, I'm really fighting to get some of that credibility that he has. You know, I don't take his age in consideration whatsoever. You know, he's shipped as a monster, as Rampage, or all the guys that I fought in 2011. You know, so you know, beating Dan Henderson is very, very important to me. He beat Fedor. Fedor's one of my idols. You know, so to have Dan Henderson in my win column, it means the world to me.
What about the idea of, you know, if you beat him, you have to go into like rematch territory, and that this is, you know, you have officially cleaned out the division. I know you don't want to look ahead too much, but what would be next for you if you do beat him?
You know, I've talked past Henderson a little bit too much this training camp, when I kind of regret it. You know, Dan Henderson is a monster, bro. He's a lion, and I don't want to talk past him anymore. You know, I'm closing on Judgment Day here, and it's time for me to just really focus in on Dan in every way, shape, and form. So I'm not going to even answer questions about after Dan.
Just one extra question for Dan. Dan, I'm curious, what do you see as kind of the storyline of this fight? Is it, you know, the old versus the new? Is it, you know, two different styles of fighting? What do you see as the storyline going in?
Well, I think everybody seems to have painted the picture of the real old guy fighting the younger guy that's been tearing everybody up, and yeah, for me, it's more about two different styles fighting against each other, more of a chess match, and you know, Jon Jones, the guy that is he's a tougher one to figure out than most guys. He uses his body style real well with his fighting style, and you know, it's for me that's a fun challenge to try to figure that out. So it's more about that and the styles rather than the age. I mean, I feel great. You know, my conditioning and training camp went perfect. So yeah, I'm feeling great.
Cool, thanks, guys.
And we'll go next to Dave Meltzer with Wrestling Observer.
Okay, this is actually for both guys, but it has to do with the fight with Shogun Rua, and I guess I'll ask Dan first. When you came out of that fight, that was quite the war. I mean, what kind of lessons did you take out of that fight on maybe what you did right or what you did wrong, and how that would help you prepare for your next fight?
I don't know. You know, it was a high-paced fight, pretty close from the beginning, and yeah, I felt like I got a little tired halfway through the fight, trying to finish him, and you know, maybe one or two more punches, and you know, being a little bit more busy, and you know, the fight would have been stopped, or you know, maybe I should have paced myself. Who knows? I just know that I was out there. I knew I thought I had him hurt and wanted to go after him and try to finish him. And yeah, I don't know. I came out of it feeling physically pretty well. I hurt my thumb in the middle of the fight. Other than that, you know, my body felt great afterwards. But I don't know. I don't know how many other lessons I learned. I'm sure there's a couple that small ones that I could, you know, probably take a while to think about. But for the most part, I just knew that I had gotten through a fight, a pretty tough fight.
And for Jon, I mean, it's been brought up in the call, you know, that Dan has had this long career and he's fought a who's who in the sport, you know, all kinds of tough guys, and no one's ever knocked him out. I mean, as far as from your standpoint, I mean, are you looking to be the first person to be able to do that, or do you feel that it's just like that's one of those things? Okay, I've got to figure out a different way to beat him than perhaps a way that would beat a normal human being, so to speak.
You know, I don't believe anyone's invincible. You know, like I said earlier, you know, when you've fought for such a long time and you've taken so many big shots, you know, I think your ability to take big shots kind of fades away. And I've watched Dan Henderson's career, his whole career, about 6 times now, throughout, you know, from fight 1 to where he's at right now. And I realize some of the strikes that make him fall. And so when people talk about how he's never been TKO'd, he's never been knocked out, you know, a lot of times when they drop him, you know, they rush into him, and you know, he has a stand-up that he does pretty well. And you know, we've really dissected a lot of things where people go wrong when it's come time to finish him. And Anderson did a good job controlling them and really stabilizing them and making shots count. You know, I think a lot of the fighters that he's fought also didn't have the necessary ground and pound to finish the game either. So you know, and another thing, you know, people get them hurt, and then they seem like they gas out and they can't finish the deal. And one thing I know I won't do is gas out. I really believe that I'll hit him in that spot that makes him fall, and then I'll finish the job. And that's something no one else has been able to do, and that's something I have great pride in doing.
Do you look forward to, or are you kind of curious as far as matching Greco-Roman wrestling with him at some point during the fight?
You know, it's not a wrestling match, and I don't have any extra pride in trying to defeat Dan in wrestling. You know, with all due respect, Dan is an Olympian, but he's not the age he was when he competed at his highest level anymore. You know, I studied Shogun Rua 1,000 times, and Shogun Rua is not a wrestler. And Shogun Rua took Dan Henderson down with ease, and I've wrestled since I was 14 years old, so I have no doubt in my mind that I'll be able to take Dan Henderson down. So yeah, but you know, I don't have any chip on my shoulder when it comes to Dan and his wrestling. I had more of a chip when it came to Shad Evans and his wrestling because of how often he takes people down and how great his takedown defense is.
Dan, do you kind of have any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I pretty much it's right on. It's not a wrestling match, you know. When you're going out trying to knock people down, you're going to get taken down sometimes if you're not careful. So, yeah, it's one of those things that that happens, and at the same time, you know, I try to use my wrestling, you know, to complement my MMA, and you know, that's pretty much what I try to do, and defensive and offensive. So, you know, I don't have any type of competition going on with anybody in MMA for my wrestling that I use. You know, it's a fight out there, and you know, the MMA part of it is going to decide you know, who's the best fighter out there.
Okay, thanks you guys very much.
And we'll go next to Richard Hunter with KRLD FM Radio Dallas.
Yes, two questions, one for Dan, one for John. Dan, first off, is there anything in this fight that you feel like you have to do in order to win? Do you feel like you have to take Jones down? Do you feel like you have to connect an H-bomb? Or do you feel like you've got enough ways to win that one of those disciplines could be completely absent of your game plan and still get the victory?
Well, there's probably a number of things I have to do to win the fight. You know, I need to at least hit him. I need to, you know, get in and control him. You know, same thing he needs to do to me. You know, except for I don't want to stand on the outside and let him use the length and just kind of hit me when I'm too far away to hit him. Yeah, it wouldn't be too fun of a fight for me if I'm standing there and he can hit me, I can't hit him. So that's probably the biggest thing that I need to handle is just that length.
And John, you know, I guess both of you are in a unique position here, knowing that Lyoto Machida is the next challenger. We don't always see that in the UFC. And your comments this week about the idea of fighting Machida have been based partly on a low-grossing pay-per-view the first time you guys fought. Is that something business-wise that you have always kept a close eye on with your career, analyzing pay-per-view numbers and that sort of thing, or is that something that has come, you know, fairly recently in terms of you focusing on that part of the out-of-the-cage business where your career is concerned?
Well, you know, not to be cliche, but I'm definitely only focusing on Dan Henderson at this point, and not really worried about Lyoto Machida. But when it comes to just the pay-per-view conversation in general, you know, it's like I fight for honor and integrity. You know, I fight to be the best. You know, I try to keep the martial arts spirit alive as much as possible. At the same time, I'm a 2012 warrior, and I fight to provide for my family. You know, this is a sport where we don't have a retirement plan and things like that. We don't have insurance for the rest of our lives. So, you know, the money that I make today is the money I'll draw from 80 years old if I ever get sick, or you know, I have to pay for several colleges already because I have a lot of kids. So it's like, you know, thinking about the business aspect. You know, the fans they're so upset. They're like, oh, you know, what does being the best have to do with pay-per-views? And you know, I think people have it all twisted. You know, right now I'm on the phone with you reporters because you guys want to make money. You guys want to write the best stories so you can make money. We all fight to make money. Yeah, you know, quite frankly. So if I was to not evolve with my time and be completely ignorant to finances, pay-per-view sales, taxes, investing, you know, it would be a shame. You know, and I refuse to be a broke athlete when I retire. So, you know, I don't apologize for being aware of pay-per-view sales and being business savvy. It's 2012, and there's a lot of broke guys out there right now who was famous at one point and all that type of stuff. So, yes, it wasn't something that I originally came into the sport with, but, you know, realized that I'm evolving and I'm changing and I'm growing as a person. And I can't apologize for that. You know, if I was the same person that I was when I joined the sport, I would be failing.
Right. Thank you.
And once again, that is *1 if you would like to ask a question. And we'll go next to Ron Krupp with Inside MMA.
Hey,
Hey guys, quick question for Dan Henderson. Dan, I know you've touched on this briefly, but I was wondering if you could go into a few more details. You've really fought some of the best in their prime. Where do you feel Jones ranks with some of the talented fighters that you've faced over the years?
He's definitely probably up there in the top of the game. As far as the guys that I fought, I fought them over different eras. All those different guys, and it's tough to compare sometimes when you have different times going on and with the sport evolving so much as it has over the last 15 years. I think Jon Jones has improved more than anybody that I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, and he's going to continue to improve and be tougher to beat, as he gets more experience in the sport. So, it's he's definitely going to be right up there with the top of the guys that I fought.
Great, thanks. And then just a quick question for Jon. Jon, now that you've defended your title several times, has the mental aspect of going into a title fight gotten easier or changed? And if so, how?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. The biggest thing one of the biggest things that, well, some of the positive ways that it's changed is being more familiar with suffering, embracing the suffering more, not feeling sorry for yourself. Knowing the numbers that you had, like last camp on the treadmill and things like that, on the weightlifting and all that. And then, always looking to beat those numbers, and then you gotta, because I fight so much, I feel as if I need to always figure out new ways to be innovative in my training. That way, my passion remains on fire. Some of the ways, I find training, studying a lot easier now. I feel like anything, if you study all the time, you could get at anything that you put your mind to. So I find that, when me and my coaching staff get together, it doesn't take as many reps watching footage anymore because we know how to study, what to look at, what to stare at. So I guess the biggest issue is just coming up with new ways to keep it fun and interesting at all times. Always looking for new muscles to tweak or new moves to learn or new ways to suffer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
absolutely it does. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in Vegas.
And we'll go next to Eric Columbia with Fox 40.
I just have 2 questions for Jon. Jon, it's been a tough time for you off the or out of the octagon. Just how much have you grown as a person in the last 4 months in dealing with that?
I've grown a lot, man. I've grown a lot. It's just, life is life, and I think what people don't realize is that just because you're a pro athlete doesn't mean you're necessarily a professional, and we are all humans, and we all do things that we regret, but it happened, and I'm moving forward in my life, and I'm actually grateful that it happened because things could have been so much worse for me. I could be sitting around in jail somewhere thinking about what I ruined. I could be on trial from injuring someone or something like that. So I'm grateful that the main price I had to pay was extreme embarrassment, and ruin an extremely expensive car, things like that. But it couldn't have happened at a better time in my life. I've grown, and I'm going to continue to grow from the situation, and I'll be forever better. I'll be forever more responsible. I'll be a better man because of it all. So we all make mistakes, and really only God can judge me, and I'm moving forward full speed ahead.
And a couple weeks ago, I happened to catch that the documentary that was about you leading up to the Shogun fight. And it's just interesting seeing your progression during each fight, each championship defense. How have you dealt with the whole, I guess, like the rise to superstardom from that day a couple years ago until now?
I've dealt with it pretty well. I'm definitely growing as a man, and I'm growing in a lot of ways. More publicity, more people waiting to see me fall, more support around the world. But the biggest thing that hasn't changed, and I think it's really the key to my stability, is the people in my life. One of me and Greg Jackson's first conversations when I came to Jackson's was, not about whether I would make it, but how I would handle it when I made it. So, he's really prepared me. From the time, since I was like 22, he's been preparing me on dealing with all this stuff. And, the ways he's seen champions go down is they start listening to too many people. They start changing up their training. They start bringing in new people. They start believing they're the greatest. They start, they start doing way too much. And one thing that I can say is that I have the same woman, I have the same coaches, I have the same nutritionists, the same teammates. My relationship with all my friends, family, and team has gotten closer. I think a lot of times when fighters grow, they start leaving people behind, and I haven't done that. So I have a very strong support base, and so you're only as good as people around you, and I have solid people in my life. So I think I'll be able to ride this train for a long time.
All right. Good luck to both of you guys, and Johnny still got a big fan base on the 607.
And we'll take a follow-up question from Steven Marocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, I just wanted to ask Dan about his thoughts about what Jon was saying about paying attention to the business aspect of fighting. Is that something you've done in your career? Do you pay attention to pay-per-view buys when you're looking at matchups and stuff like that?
Well, you always pay attention to them. I mean, it's something you always hope the numbers are going to stay up there, and especially in the last few years with the economy being lower, I felt like I've been fortunate enough to be in a sport that's been on the rise and growing so dramatically over the last few years during that time, and it's been nice to have a solid job during that time when a lot of people are losing their jobs because of the economy. So obviously, the pay-per-view numbers always could be better, no matter how many buys you sell. But for me, it's been being a part of MMA and growing, to love the sport so well has been great. But on top of that, to have a solid job that I knew that the money is just going to get better over the course of time. So it's been nice to be able to be a part of that.
Is that something that you prepared for? Like when fighting ends, have you prepared for that moment when fighting ends and you transition into something else in your life?
I'm sure I'll always be involved in MMA, and I've gotten some things set up to where I will be involved in other things as well. But I'll always be involved in MMA and coaching guys and just for the love of the sport.
And one quick pop star here. He's called you an older version of Rashad Evans. Any reactions to that?
I'm probably an older version to a lot of people, but I don't think I have the style as Rashad. We're both totally different wrestling styles, and I don't know. It don't matter to me. I guess I don't have too many comments about it.
And Jon, maybe a little bit clarification. Why did you make that comment? Was it Dan's earlier comment about the sloppy comment or anything like that, or were you feeling offended by that?
Well, the reason I made the comment, I went into this fight with extreme respect for Dan, and I still have respect for Dan. That's why I was so disappointed when he started making fun of, calling me goofy elbows and young kid and sloppy. He's a sloppy fighter, and all these insults back to back start off the whole fight. I was just like, oh, so this is how we're gonna play, huh? So I do respect Dan Henderson a lot. I mean, he's a nice guy. I just saw a picture of him holding a rattlesnake recently that he found in his backyard. It's like things like that. I respect Dan. I would want to take him to the gun range with me. He's that type of dude. But at the same time, when insults get thrown out, it causes me to speak more honestly. And, I spoke my mind, and I really do feel like he's an older version of Rashad. Rashad Evans, he had an extreme overhand right. It was lightning fast to the point where you don't even see it coming. He actually caught me with that overhand right during our fight, and I did not see it coming. It was so incredibly fast. Dan Henderson has an overhand right. Rashad's overhand right is his main weapon. Dan Henderson's overhand right is his main weapon. The difference is the extreme speed difference. And Rashad Evans, not only did you have to worry and train for a boxing match your whole camp, but you also had to worry about that double leg takedown. Dan Henderson has solid wrestling. He has a very good low, bear hug from the lower back with little knee trips, a few Greco-Roman throws, So, it's just like, I find myself comparing for some similarities there. The difference is, Rashad has a strong cardio. He can bring it for 5 hard rounds. I don't think Dan can do that. So, it may be a slight insult, but it was everything I say. It was sure truth.
And Dan, what was your intention behind saying he was sloppy and stuff like that?
Well, I believe that it was to answer questions about where I see openings, and I think at times he is a little sloppy with his striking, and that would be certain opportunities for me to land some strikes. It's what I see when I watch tapes. I'm sloppy sometimes too. It's not anything in evidence of. It's what it is.
And your reaction to him saying that you can't last 5 rounds?
Sometimes my cardio could have been a little better, but I think a lot of that is attributed to the pace of the fight sometimes, and I've had some pretty good paces going in a few of the fights, and I'm not worried about my cardio for this fight at all.
Any chance of you guys going to the gun range after this fight?
I like to shoot.
Maybe archery better for you?
Yeah, I like archery a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
And we'll go next to Brett Okamoto with ESPN.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time. A couple questions for John. Something that you said earlier, that you weren't going to apologize for being business savvy and looking at things like pay-per-view numbers. I'm just curious, is that something that's happened over the last year when you really kind of became a star and you're headlining cards, or did you get into this sport telling yourself that this is something I like to do, but it's also a business. I need to make sure that I support my family and all this. I mean, is that something that happened early on, or is that something that kind of progressed over time as you got to be a bigger deal in the UFC?
Well, it's a mixture between two things. It's been very well documented that my whole reason for picking up MMA gloves in the first place was because I had a kid on the way. So, I haven't lost sight of my original goal. My original goal was to be successful in my parents' eyes. My brothers are both in the NFL, and I was the college dropout out of the group between me and my brothers. So I always had a fear of not making it and being a failure and having to go back to my parents and borrow money. I'm from a long line of family members that need to borrow money from their parents, and I don't want to be that person. So originally, I joined the sport because I wanted to make it. It was a survival move. When I met my coaches, it became more than money. It became about warrior spirit. And so I can sit here and truthfully say that I have both. I have business savvy, and I have a true warrior spirit. If you can't be one thing, you gotta have many sides to you. And I have many sides to me. I have a business side, I have a religious side, I have a fun side, I have many sides, so, me being business savvy, I think it's sad how the fans out, kind of attack me about it. It's like, dude, I don't think they realize that all their favorite fighters care about the bank account.
How did they attack you? Obviously, I'm guessing Twitter. What were some of the comments that were made? Just that they're looking for kind of this romantic idea that the guys only fight just for the pleasure of it and not for the money?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I think, I got questions. It really doesn't matter because I really can't afford to let that weigh on me. But at the same time, I just want them to be educated and to know that, it's a business. We don't, in the original days, guys did fight because they just loved it that much. And I truly just love it that much. I really do. But, I don't want to have to fight, when I'm really old. I want to be done at a certain age, and I want to do things right. They say, NFL stands for not for long. Guys I'm sure they're really passionate about football, but they don't go out there and put their bodies on the line because they love it that much. They do it because they love it. They want to be the best, and they want to provide for their family. So it's just like, I just want fans to know that it's so much more than just fighting because you love it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be the champion. I looked at it as a possible love to make my wife happy.
Yeah, this might sound like a silly question given your age and the fact that you haven't taken a lot of punishment in your career, but you just did mention that, you do see yourself walking away at a certain age. I mean, do you have a plan in terms of your career and the amount of money you want to make and the amount of years you want to do it? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, my ideal is to fight 4 or 3 times a year, despite how big things get. Always put my belt on the line, and try to conquer records fast. I'm creeping up on Tito's record in almost a year and a half time, and so I'll never be a champion that sits on the belt. And even though I've been mentioning choosing fights lately, that doesn't mean that I'll sit on the belt. That doesn't mean I won't fight people. I just would throw my 2 cents out there and what I think is right. So I want to go out there. I want to try to blow through records. I want to try to do it at a young age while I'm still in my prime and while my brain is very well intact, and then get out of there and explore other avenues at a young age.
Last question for me, and I appreciate the time. What was more exciting, winning the belt or finding out that you had signed the Nike sponsorship?
Excuse me?
What was more exciting to you when it happened, winning the belt or finding out for the first time that you had signed the Nike sponsorship?
Yeah, winning the belt was the biggest thing for me. It was definitely the biggest thing for me. Gigantic, man. To be considered the best in the world at something is a true honor. I thought that was bigger than me. And, when I did it, it meant everything. Nike was a great goal. And something that I believed in and that made it come to pass. And I'm extremely grateful for it. It's reassuring to myself that, when you really believe in your heart, you can do something, you can do it. It's like I couldn't do push-ups there in a Nike deal. It was kind of like, all the attention, me doing the right things. But to answer your question, winning the belt meant more to me than anything. And it still does.
Great. Well, thank you very much, guys. Good luck to both of you.
And we'll go next to Luke Thomas with MMAfighting.com.
Jon, this is the first opponent you faced who is on TRT. I want to get your comments about that, and then more generally, what is your perception or belief about TRT in the sport more largely?
Well, that's a pretty controversial topic, man. I'm not sure I should go there or not. Basically, I believe that if you're healthy enough to play a sport, you shouldn't take any performance enhancement drugs or anything with testosterone. It's like, fighters make a lot of money in their 20s, make a lot of money in their 30s, and when they get in their 40s, unfortunately, you're in your 40s. You should fight the way you fight. When you're in your 40s, switch your style up to stay in the game. I don't think you should be able to take a drug to pretty much give you the strength of a 30-year-old again. That's like me saying, I'm not as fast twitch as I was when I was 20. Let me just take something to be 20 again. I think things like TRT and and steroids and things should be for the sick or for the normal people that really need the drugs. But athletes, I mean, if you're an athlete, you're an athlete. You know, I don't think anyone should have anything that enhances them. Great, thanks.
And we'll take our final question from Jordan Cisawa with TSN 1290.
Going on that Nike deal, it's fantastic. I agree with the business savvy stuff that you've been saying. And you come from a fantastic camp over at Jackson's. But where I want to go with this is over to Dan. Dan, I've had the pleasure of being up to Team Quest a few times, watched you prep for the UFC 100 fight. Tell me and tell the fans, what is Team Quest? How have you guys been growing as a team? I'm watching a whole bunch of excellent young fighters coming out of there. And then also talk about branding with Clinch Gear. We see everything, Strike Force, it's huge. Where are you going with Team Quest, Clinch Gear? How has your fight camps changed, and who's up at Quest right now prepping you for Jon Bones?
Team Quest is something, that it means a lot to me. I started that with Randy originally a long time ago, and it's grown to be like a big family, and we have a few gyms opened up here and there, and it typically has guys that are wanting to improve, and the guys that have bad attitudes don't really stick around too long or don't make it too long. We've got a great group of guys, and a pretty international group as well. A bunch of guys from all over, Belgium, France, Brazil, and here and there from, guys coming in from all over the world. And this camp, I've got a couple long guys in here. Cyril Diabate is pretty long and tall and really great with his striking. And another tall guy I got in is Christian Tumbu Tonton. The guy, he's a Bellator light heavyweight champ, and my normal guys, Dave Herman and Tarek Sapidine just fought over the weekend, and a few other guys, and everybody kind of helps each other out and pushes, and just like a lot of other teams, but I feel like we're a big family.
Now further to that, I know again with John's team, they sit down, they review video. Are you guys on that same kind of thing? Do you sit down, review video, go over your numbers from last fight camps with the weights you've been lifting and all that, or is this more grit?
No, I sit down and watch video with my coaches and some of the teammates sometimes, and look at things and come up with a game plan. For the most part, beyond the obvious things of what needs to be done is with a game plan against someone like Jon Jones, and it's been a great camp, and I do look at my numbers as far as my cardio and cross training goes, with the heart rates and everything else that goes into that, and compare it to previous training camps, and everything's been way ahead of schedule for this camp.
Perfect, thanks, and good luck to both of you guys.
Thank you.
That does conclude our question and answer session. I will now turn the call back over to Ann Evans for any additional or closing remarks.